We're out of recess for State Government Finance Policy and Elections Committee. And this is Wednesday evening, March 10, 2021 for the audio record. And so glad to have you all back. It's a cold, rainy night out there anyway, much better to be in with our warm committee meeting this evening. So we'll see, we've got another full agenda. Looks like we're gonna be going quite late tonight, folks, so just keep that in mind. We'll let you know that we are changing one order. I'm going to put all of my bills to the end of the committee hearing. So number 5, 6, 7, and 9 are, I'm the chief author. So I put those to the bottom of the agenda, and Senator Chamberlain's Senate File 1525 will go after Senator Housley. So after Senator Housley, we will be doing Senate File 1525. Is there anything else? Are we good? All right. Okay. All right. And then I think we're ready to go on our first bill, Senate File 708. Senator Koran, you know the routine, so go ahead and present your bill. And just to mention, we do have testifiers that each have been given a time limit for this evening to speak. So just kind of keep that in mind. But Senator Koran, go ahead and present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move Senate File 708. Madam Chair?
Yes, go right ahead, Senator Koran.
708 is the ranked choice voting prohibition. We've kind of had this conversation in the past. And what it does is it removes ranked choice voting as a voting method and restores voting methods and practices back to a state-determined process, which we have operated successfully under for many, many years. Ranked choice voting is one of the biggest challenges that we hear from my community and all over the state. Is it really eliminates the one person, one vote standard that we've had in our universal democratic republic established by our U.S. Constitution. And an individual can have their vote completely eliminated as a final result of this particular process, where as many as up to 18% of the votes can be washed out or not included or not part of the final determination. Well, I certainly support local elections and local control in elections, but it's foundational to our democratic republic. When cities are actively disenfranchising voters through their election processes, that's when we need to step in and make sure to take those actions. No election system with the result of 20% of the voters not mattering in a process, much like our largest cities today, or in a mayoral race, when they're washed out, is not good for the voter and the integrity of our system. Ranked choice is not supported by possibly the most liberal governors in the nation, Jerry Brown, certainly our past a great Minnesotan, or his current Minnesotan, Walter Mondale. He's made statements that it's not a great process. Ranked choice voting is also not proven its claims, and it's not cheaper, nor does it increase the voter turnout, and does not stop negative campaigning. You can just take a look back to the last mayoral race for Melvin Carter. Also doesn't deliver a majority as it claims. Minneapolis mayor's race, Jacob Fry, didn't even get 45% of the vote. And only 7 of the last 20 elections utilizing this in major cities in Minneapolis met that threshold. When it was passed in St. Paul, a group supporting St. Paul Better Ballot campaign, it was fined for significant, it's one of the largest fines by the Office of Administrative Hearings. They lied to St. Paul voters and were funded by Fair Vote Minnesota, which doesn't sound too fair to me. We also have concerns with this voting process being migrated or attempted to be migrated all throughout rural Minnesota. Fair Vote Minnesota certainly doesn't appear to be funded by people who are friendly to the average citizen. Dark money is not good for our elections, and the Arnold Foundation, based out of Texas, is one behind this process. Our legislature sets election laws and not local communities. And we need that uniformity to make sure that elections are held in a standard manner all throughout the state. And finally, Madam Chair, it's one thing that's close to me. I think this election process has brought into created some great challenges. I think a considerable factor in 2 of our greatest cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and led them to the greatest challenges that they have in that process. One of them being my hometown. And I think it's been a contributing factor that's led them down a path of being less prosperous in the financial despair that we see them in today. I don't want that to happen throughout Minnesota. And I want an election system everybody can believe and trust. So with that, Madam Chair, would you turn it over to testifiers? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Koran. Members, I trust you have the updated agenda for this evening that was sent out. It's the same. Right, okay. Anyway, just so I just wanted to be sure you're clear with that, give a little time. So we have our first testifier tonight is Sean Towell. Welcome, Mr. Towell, to the committee. If you're ready, you can go ahead and state your name for the audio record and then proceed with your testimony. We started quite a bit on time. We might be having to wait for a few people here. Okay. All right, we'll go to the next testifier at this time that I have on my list, and we'll come back to Mr. Towell. Mr. Sutter, Mr. Randy Sutter, if you are on. All right, we'll go to Kathy Kranz. All right, we'll go next to Jean Massey. Jean, are you on tonight? Our testifiers are having a little trouble this evening, Senator Koran.
Yes, I see that. There are only 24 people logged on. Do we have people waiting in the room, waiting in the other room?
No, there are no people waiting at this time, but we'll continue to check on that. We'll next go to Mr. Dorsey. Mr. Dorsey, I see you are, I believe.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I would note that shortly, I'd already-
Mr. Dorsey, before you start, we need you to state your name, and if you're representing an organization, please say so, but just say it for the audio record.
Ma'am, my name is James Dorsey. I'm on the board of Fair Vote Minnesota. And as it happened, I represented Fair Vote Minnesota in a case before the Minnesota Supreme Court in 2009, entitled Minnesota Voters Alliance versus the City of Minneapolis. I've submitted a written statement. And so this evening, I'm just gonna focus on the fact that I recommend the opinion by, it was a unanimous court, 7-0 vote, supporting ranked choice voting against claims that it's unconstitutional. And it's written by the then Chief Justice, Eric Magnuson, who is only Chief Justice he's only on the court for 2 years, but he had spent his entire career in appellate advocacy. And his 30-page opinion is really a textbook in analysis of ranked choice voting. And I recommend it to those people who are concerned that ranked choice voting presents constitutional issues. The justice is an expert in the area. He does a nice job. And as to the claim, including the claim that is not one person, one vote, and the claim that it creates inequality or is not equal protection. And he writes that he concludes that ranked choice voting creates no inequality because, quote, every ballot and every vote is counted by the same rules and standards. And ma'am, I understand my time is short. And I would just conclude by saying one of the geniuses of our federal system is it has created laboratories for democracy. And I would exhort this committee to permit the communities throughout Minnesota to, if they want to, explore, experiment, and come up with new ways of advancing our experiment in democracy. Unless there are any questions, that's all I have, Your Honor. Laboratories for democracy. And
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Appreciate your comments this evening. I see that we have, it appears maybe that I think this is Jean Massey. It doesn't have a name there, but it just says Fair Vote Minnesota. But Jean, I'm just gonna jump to the conclusion that it is you.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Right. And so again, for the record, state your name and also the organization you're representing.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Chair Kiffmeyer, members of the committee. My name is Jean Massey, Executive Director of Fair Vote Minnesota. We are a nonpartisan organization that promotes ranked choice voting in Minnesota. I'm also an election judge. Since 2009, we have documented the experience of ranked choice voting in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and St. Louis Park. And contrary to some of the claims that have been made tonight, more than 545,000 ranked choice voting ballots have been cast. Voter participation has consistently increased under ranked choice voting, and voters overwhelmingly say ranked choice voting is easy to use and more civil, and that they prefer it over the old system. Bloomington and Minnetonka voters adopted ranked choice voting this past November, and more cities want to adopt it but can't under current state law. Senator Eakin's bill, Senate File 2018, solves this problem by letting all local governments adopt ranked choice voting if they wish. Senate File 708 does just the opposite. Why would the legislature thwart local-driven efforts to do what they believe is in their own best interest and seek to overturn the vote of citizens deciding how they want to run their local elections? We urge you all to vote no on Senate File 708. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Massey. Appreciate your time this evening. And our next testifier will be Kim Nelson. Kim, please state your name, and if you represent an organization, do that for the audio record, and then just go right into your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Kim Nelson. I'm a Minnesota Fair Vote board member, and I'm here from the business community to support ranked choice voting. Business relies on effective political governance to make long-term investment decisions and to attract talent to the state. And currently, we are mired in political dysfunction and gridlock. Ranked choice voting attacks this problem directly by disincentivizing negative campaigning and incentivizing candidates to build coalitions to win elections. This, in turn, drives the kind of bipartisan legislation that can stand the test of time and create the stability that the business community needs to thrive. Senate File 708 would overturn ranked choice voting in cities currently using it, taking away their power to decide what's best for them. Local voters have spoken, and state lawmakers should not overturn their will. Both Democrats and Republicans will benefit from more civil campaigns and less extremism. I respectfully urge you to support ranked choice voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. I just wanted to clarify, you mentioned your representing or speaking for businesses. When you said you were on the board of Fair Vote Minnesota, is there another organization, or was that just something that you felt you were doing personally, Ms. Nelson? I just wanted to be sure I got it straight.
I am on the board of Minnesota Fair Vote, and I also am just a member of the business community.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. We also next have Evan Brown. Mr. Brown, are you online this evening? There you lit up and came on camera. Good to see you, Mr. Brown. And for the audio record, your name and any organization you're representing, and then proceed to your testimony.
My name is Evan Brown. I do not represent any organization. I am a city council member in the city of Red Wing, Minnesota. I went to speak out in opposition to Senate File 708. I've been working for many years to allow Red Wing residents to have a choice of whether to adopt ranked choice voting in their municipal elections. Their choice, that's what I've worked for. I haven't worked for implementing it, but allowing the residents of our city to make a choice about how they want to implement their elections. Senate File, of course, 708 has been stated would remove that choice for cities that have already made the change, and cities like mine would never even have the opportunity to implement it. And as has been said by other testifiers, I can't see any good reasoning for that. It's constitutional. It's I think it's been thoroughly vetted, and the cities have vetted it real time in the laboratory of democracy, in my opinion. So instead of removing the abilities of cities to best decide what works for them in their cities, I believe this committee should instead focus on consistent rules for all cities and counties and school districts to be able to easily and consistently implement this voting method. I mean, we do have a variety of voting methods that are ballot that are somewhat similar. I mean, if you think about school board races. And I also believe this committee should really work on increasing citizen participation in elections and removing barriers and fostering conditions that allow cities some local control of their own elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate you taking the time today to testify and appreciate your service as a city council member. Our next testifier is Stan Lockhart.
Chair
Mr.
Kiffmeyer?
Lockhart, there you
Yes,
go.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Lockhart. Again,
Okay.
state your name and so on, and then proceed.
Great. My name's Stan Lockhart. I'm here representing myself in opposition to Senate File 708. I just want to share with you the experience in Utah, where I'm a former Utah Republican Party chairman. About 25 years ago, grassroots activists brought ranked choice voting to the Republican Party. We've used it in our conventions and caucuses off and on ever since. And I went from being highly opposed at the beginning because whatever grassroots activists were in favor of, I was against. And as we've experienced it and used it, I've become an enthusiastic supporter. 3 years ago, our state passed a local options bill, and our first time out 2 years ago, we had 2 cities use it. At the end of that process, the county clerk surveyed voters who had voted in that election. 82% were in favor of using ranked choice voting again, and 87% of the candidates who participated were in favor of using it again. And we're sure that we're going to have several more cities adopting it this year. Ranked choice voting works. On a principled perspective, I believe that it really fulfills what our founders had in mind. Thomas Jefferson said, an informed citizenry is the best defense against tyranny. And ranked choice voting promotes an informed citizenry, an engaged electorate, an educated voter. On a pragmatic side, it gets rid of many games that plurality voting have, such as the spoiler effect, such as vote splitting, such as having to vote for the 2 frontrunners because your preferred candidate may not have a chance. And so I just encourage you to keep allowing cities the opportunity to use ranked choice voting. In Utah, we're considering using it in partisan elections because we're so happy with the results so far. And of course, it depends on how these cities, the data that we get from these cities on whether we'll move forward. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Appreciate hearing a voice from Utah. Nonetheless, at this time, we will go back to the top of our list, and I have Sean Towle. Mr. Towle, if you are there, I see you are on board. Please again state your name for the audio record, and then proceed to testify.
Yes, Madam Chair, it's Toll, T-O-W-L-E.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. My name is Sean Toll. I'm a private citizen in St. Paul, but also the publisher of Minnesota's first digital publication, Checks and Balances. I will disagree strongly with the last speaker because of the experience with the system, but also the fact that we have a constructed system for competitive elections. We actually make choices, but to have a panoply of opportunities by which you have a cumulative vote total rendering is actually where the losers have the opportunity to pick the winner. If you've chosen the last place candidate, your vote gets to be counted again. That seems like a fundamental unfairness to me, that you are able to basically take more bites of the apple than anyone else. But what really is strong in my opposition is the following. I feel that IRV, RCV, whatever misnomer you create for this system, any other reallocation method of voting is like our past president who told lies, made false equivalencies, and those who supported him misrepresented time after time after time. RCV claims to produce majority elections. It doesn't. Less than 40% of the time in Minnesota experience with municipal elections, we have seen the result fall far below 50.1% or a simple majority. Unless you want to do what Fair Vote Minnesota wants you to do, which is only count the results from the last tabulation. Then it's a cumulative vote total. But sorry, you need to divide from the first round. The total of the first round of participants is the denominator. This is important because of the votes cast, of which many of them are cast aside. It's important in this regard. If in St. Paul, a voter who selects someone who's not one of the final two resultants, then that means their vote is called unassigned. meaning it is round filed. It might as well not even be cast. It is an exhausted vote in Minneapolis. What it creates is a situation where up to 23% of the participants in an election have no result in the final outcome. So when 23% of the people are basically cast aside in the process, that can't be considered a good process. That is not democracy. What that is tyranny. I believe that what we are dealing with here is a system that rejects people out of hand because they weren't, quote, smart enough to be able to make the choice of the final two people. And just like the last speaker said, he believes that that's a good thing. No, it's not. That's not an informed voter. If you look at what happens in our elections, if you get a chance to scrutinize the ballot, many times one voter will vote for the same person 6 times in St. Paul because they have 6 options. That's not ranked choice voting. Or somebody might, like myself, vote 1 time. I decide I'm picking one candidate, I'm voting in a traditional fashion. If I am not smart enough to pick the final, one of the final 2, my vote doesn't count. That's a disenfranchisement. But in addition, one person, one vote is the fundamental here. I'm wrapping up, Madam Chair. One person, one vote is the fundamental. This question has not been tested. It needs to be tested in court. It needs to be tested to the capacity of how is it that when you pick the loser, you get to vote 5 more times? That's not fair.
Thank you, Mr. Toll, for your comments this evening and for your time. With that, we'll go to Mr. Randy Sutter. Mr. Sutter, welcome to the committee, and state your name for the audio record. You're off mute, so you're ready to go once you state your name, and then proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I am Randy Sutter. I am a citizen of Bloomington, Minnesota. I'm speaking in favor of SF number 708 this evening, as I'm against RCV for municipal elections. I believe strongly the candidates for elected office need to win with a majority of the vote. Our primary system narrows the field to 2 candidates to ensure that one candidate gets over 50% of the vote. Last year's special election in Minneapolis's Ward 6 demonstrates that RCV does not assure a majority vote. 13 candidates filed to run for the open city council seat. After the RCV ballots went through 3 rounds of retabulation, Jamal Osman was declared the winner with only 36% of the vote. AJ Alwood came in second with 30% of the vote. That means fully 34% of the ballots were exhausted. That means that fully 1/3 of the ballots did not rank either of these candidates. Said another way, 1/3 of the voters did not have a voice in choosing their city councilor. Could that 1/3 have made a difference? Very possibly. Only 500 votes separated the first and second place finishers. The exhausted ballot count, over 2,600. Regarding how simple RCV was, the Star Tribune noted in an article on the election published on August 15th that AJ Alwood was confused by the results and would need to consult with his campaign team. And that coming from the second place finisher. One can only imagine what the voters thought. Madam Chair, thank you for my opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sutter. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us this evening. The next testifier that I have, and the last one I have on my list, is Miss Kathy Kranz. I hope I have pronounced that correctly. Ms. Kranz, if you are online, if you could just say a couple words so we can see you on the screen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am a resident of Bloomington also. Thank you for letting me testify tonight. Last year,
Ms. Krantz, so sorry to interrupt you, but you need to say your name for the audio record before you testify.
It's Kathy Krantz, and I'm a resident of Bloomington. Thank you. Last year, Bloomington residents realized that our city council was lobbied by an outside group to pass ranked choice voting, ignoring the Charter Commission's rejection of it. The protectors of our city charter were dismissed as advisors only. Concerned residents in opposition were given just 90 days before election to refute the unproven niceties of RCV. We were outspent by a large pro-RCV national foundation and billionaires of about $130,000 to our mere $6,000 from residents. $126,670 of that, 130, was from Fair Vote Minnesota, funded mainly by Fair Vote National and the John Arnold Foundation. It's hard as a resident group to mount a local campaign proving the false equivalencies of a well-financed misrepresentational group, Fair Vote Minnesota. Isn't it interesting that by the time the money was funneled to Bloomington, about 97% of the money spent was not from Bloomington. Of 55,027 votes for president in 2020 in Bloomington, 91% of registered voters, 49,497 voted on the RCV question, leaving 5,530 voters who did not touch the question. RCV was passed by a mere 96 votes in Bloomington, hardly a majority of support. Ranked choice voting is a voting scheme perpetrated to disconnect from real issues, allows one-issue candidates with marginal support to win with less than a majority, which the League of Women Voters has also acknowledged, eliminates the narrowed choices between two top-tier candidates, and disproportionately disenfranchises voters, particularly the marginalized and elderly, leading sometimes to up to a 25% exhausted balloting. All elections should be clear, fair, transparent, inclusive, valid, and trustworthy. I support this bill and I'm available for more additional testimony or information. Thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kranz. I appreciate your taking the time to attend the committee and voice your opinions here this evening, as you all have done. Senator Koran. And members, we will not be taking any other comments from the testifiers. I will be going to Senator Koran at this time.
No, Madam Chair, I think I appreciate all the comments from everybody for and against. And are you looking for closing comments, Madam Chair, or additional comments from members?
Yeah, there is no other hand raised at this time from members of the committee. So yes, Senator Koran, you can do your closing comments and then we'll go to, there is a hand. We have Senator Carlson. Senator Carlson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask one of the testifiers a question. And that would be Mr. Dorsey mentioned a court decision. I'm wondering if he could elaborate on when and where and who made that decision.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. Mr. Dorsey, if you're still online, if you'd like to respond to that question.
Referring to the decision of the Minnesota Supreme Court in 2009. The case name is?
Madam Chair, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Dorsey.
The case name is Minnesota Voters Alliance versus City of Minneapolis.
All right. Is that answered your question, Senator Carlson?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Senator Carlson. Senator Osmek.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And I am in the strange position of agreeing with Sean Toll. I think probably for the first time in my life. I just want to sort of maybe better illustrate what Mr. Toll is talking about. And Mr. Toll, you don't have to respond to this, but you can just give me a thumbs up if I have the correct scenario. In this scenario, you have 4 candidates. Mr. Toll and yourself, Mr. Toll and I vote. I vote for candidate D in order, D, C, and B. Mr. Toll votes for candidate A. In the first round of balloting, candidate A gets 40%, not a plurality. I voted for candidate D, and he got the least number of votes. So we go through the machinations. We leave it to the computer systems. We put in the algorithms, and we go to level 2. Level 2, I'm voting then for candidate C. Again, candidate A, who Mr. Toll voted for once, I get to register a second vote for candidate C. So now, for those of you who are scoring at home, that's 2 candidates I voted for, 1 candidate that Mr. Toll has voted for. And what happens is, and again, nobody gets a plurality. So we go to the next level and we find out that candidate C didn't get enough votes to stay in. So now we're down to a one-on-one race. candidate A versus candidate B. And I've voted now, the third vote I'm registering is for candidate B. Again, how many, Mr. Toll, hold up how many fingers you have voted for. How many voters have you met? You've had one vote and I've had 3 votes. And strangely enough, what can happen is the candidate who is candidate 1 or candidate A, who has had the most votes in the first 2 rounds, can get overwhelmed at the end by candidates C and D's votes. They all bleed up into B, and candidate B wins. There's where we are, folks. That's what ranked choice voting does. So, there's a quote by George Orwell that I will modify. Some voters are equal, but some voters are more voters than other voters, so to speak. That's what ranked choice voting does. It creates a scenario where somebody like me can vote 3 times, and somebody like Mr. Toll can vote how many times? Once. Is that what this document, the Constitution, was designed to do? No. We are supposed to be a country that for over 200 years, we've lived with this voting system. It's worked perfectly fine. To suddenly pull out calculators and slide rules and computer systems, which incidentally, there's people, and I'm sure Senator Toll, well, I'm not going to upgrade you, but I'm sure Mr. Toll probably won't agree with me about the last election, but there's a lot of people on my side of the board, rightfully or wrongly so, think that the election may not have been on the up and up. All this does is create even more questions. One person, one vote, that's it. And I think once you explain this scenario to people, all of the court cases and all the legal mumbo jumbo and all the razzle dazzle of liberal groups, because really what this is a bunch of radical liberal groups who want to fundamentally change our voting system. And it borders upon, and I use the term communistic, it's bordering upon one-party communism, and I won't stand for it. And that's why I've signed on to the board bill, and I appreciate Senator Koran bringing this bill forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Osmek. Again, I will go to you, Senator Carlson. Do you have something new, or is your hand just still up yet?
No, I would like to speak against the rhetoric that's going on here, Madam Chair. I hear a lot of talk about exhausted ballots and all of that sort of thing. And one of the things that this used to be called was instant runoff voting, which actually replaced the primaries. And I'm wondering if we talk about this, use this kind of the same terminology for people that don't vote in a primary. If you don't vote in a primary, then do you get to vote in the general election because you didn't vote that person in? And also, when we talk about one vote here, we're talking about this committee voting to overrule the majority vote in some cities and overrule even the ability of these cities to vote for themselves. We're overruling local control. And if we had a little different bill in front of us, what we'd have is we'd have a flip here where the people that are talking against this bill or for this bill are the ones that would be talking about having local control. You want to upend local control, the local control in Bloomington, the local control in any city that wants to put this on their ballot. And I think what you heard from Mr. Sutter was that even the GOP in Utah is finding that this is really very attractive. I've been part of this in the Democratic Party in Minnesota, and we find it very attractive as well. And I'm sorry, but what someone said was that it doesn't eliminate the animosity between candidates. It certainly does. It certainly does. If you want to get the most votes, you're going to have to be nice to whomever number 2 is or number 3 is. And Mr. Tal, you can shake your head if you want, but that is you're just talking in the air. It does do that. And also it actually does encourage the issues coming from a third party. I think maybe some of you are old enough to remember Ross Perot coming to the presidential election. He brought things to that presidential election that the two major parties wouldn't have brought up because they were actually minority ideas, but they actually became majority ideas after Ross Perot brought them up. That's a good thing. It's a good thing for us to support the ability of a third party, a fourth party, or any kind of minority party to bring up the good ideas that they have. And maybe they don't win, but at least they can bring those good ideas to the forefront and have people vote their heart and vote for a good idea. And then maybe they can run off and vote for their party as their second vote, either the second vote or the first vote. But it brings these ideas to the forefront and it allows people to share ideas. And I guess the other thing I'd probably want to press real hard, or I guess the thing that I press real hard is that this is the epitome of local control. And for us to say that we have the overwhelming godlike persona to be able to preempt the cities, all the cities and municipalities and all the uses of ranked choice voting in the state, that's pretty arrogant of us. It's pretty arrogant of us to think that we know better than those places who have used the majority vote to bring in this system of voting. So I have to say that I'm strongly against 708. And in my mail, it tells me that I have a lot of backing from people from all over the state that are writing and they oppose Senate File 708. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. I just want to clarify, Mr. Sutter is not from Utah.
I'm sorry,
That's okay, Senator Carlson. Mr. Lockhart is from Utah.
Lockhart,
I
yes.
think Mr. Sutter would be glad to have that clarified. Thank you,
in
Senator
front of me.
Carlson. I appreciate it. I understand it. Senator Koran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And with closing remarks, I think Minnesota needs to restore our election process to a system where all candidates are running to actually win, not just participate in the election process, and restore it so it's understood and thorough and each vote counts. And we need to restore the plurality system, which has been successful for the last couple hundred years. And so with that, Madam Chair, I would encourage a yes vote for all of our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Koran. Actually, Senator Koran, this bill is going to be laid over for possible inclusion. So members, I really appreciate your time this evening and the conversation that we have had. Thank you very much. With that, members, we'll move to our next bill on the agenda, which I have is Senator Osmek, Senate File 1907. And also to mention that Mr. Sigurdsson, the Executive Director of the Campaign Finance Board, will be available if there are any questions. Thank you, Mr. Sigurdsson. With that, Senator Osmek, to your bill. You're muted, sorry.
I flipped away because I was going to the spreadsheet that I had provided to the committee members. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. This Senate File 1907. This is a small modification being made to Campaign Finance Board activity dealing with our state campaigns. For those of you who may have looked at that spreadsheet, I've actually sort of color coded this with red for Republicans and blue for Democrats. I hope I haven't made a mistake on any of them. I think I got them right. Under current campaign finance law, if in a campaign race where there are two candidates, well, we could have more than that, where you have candidates that have chosen not to honor the public subsidy, the spending limits, and sign the public subsidy pledge, you have a situation where one candidate can raise and spend unlimited amounts of money, and another candidate has chosen to keep a reasonable lid on the amount of money that is being spent on campaigns, that they focus it on, in my opinion, issues rather than how many commercials can I throw up onto cable TV or how many billboards I can purchase. Under current campaign finance law, if you choose not to sign the public subsidy pledge and abide by the spending limits, your opponent, if they choose to honor the pledge, they can be released from their cap. But that's really the only penalty that goes on. The person who signs the pledge gets their public subsidy, and they can request to be removed, have the cap removed on their spending. This situation actually did happen to me in the last election. I pledged and stayed under the cap, and I received my public subsidy. I don't think that that's enough of an incentive, though, to have candidates in Minnesota be reasonable, be fair, and not be trying to purchase a Senate or House seat because they happen to have the fattest Rolodex. That's really what this comes down to. In Senate File 1907, what this does is it says not only will the candidate who does not sign the public subsidy agreement, not only will they not get the public subsidy agreement, that their public subsidy agreement, which Mr. Sigurdsson we may attest to eventually, their public subsidy in my bill would go to the opponent who honors the pledge and honors to stay under the spending limits. That's really as simple as what this is. It's an additional incentive for candidates to keep and spend at a reasonable level. And keep in mind that first-time candidates, there's a number of factors that move how much money a candidate can spend depending on if they're a first-time candidate, if they have a closely contested primary. Those type of situations change the amount of money that is allowable once you sign that public subsidy agreement. On the spreadsheet that you see, it really is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. You'll see that there are Republicans and Democrats that have chosen to forego the public subsidy and not honor the campaign spending limits that go back in history. And actually, Mr. Sigurdsson gave me this information and volunteered it. And I sort of get and I'm not going to put words in his mouth, I sort of get the impression that the Campaign Finance Board may be interested in putting additional incentives to try and keep campaign spending at a reasonable level and make it about issues, not about how many commercials you can throw onto TV. So with that, members, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do have a Democrat sponsor. He is the chief author in the House. Is Representative Mike Nelson is carrying this in the House. And I would appreciate your consideration and support to move this to general orders. And I would move, Madam Chair, just to get this onto the table, I would move Senate File 1907 be approved by this body and recommended to pass and sent to general orders.
Well, Senator Osmek, I don't know that we're ready for that motion yet. Please just hold it back a bit here. Members, Senator Carlson, you have your hand up. It's been up quite a bit tonight. I'm not quite sure sometimes whether you're, okay, all right. Okay, Senator Carlson, all right. So Senator Clausen, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for Senator Osment about how are the public subsidies determined?
Well,
Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad Mr. Sigurdsson is here. The way
I was just going to say, phone a friend.
And he'll answer the question. The calculation on that is determined based upon the checkoffs that are on your state taxes. That's where you check off and say, I want to send money. So that's really where that comes in. It tells them out of each district how much money goes into the fund for that district, but then there's a general account number. So I'll let Mr. Sigurdsson answer the question now.
Thank you, Senator Osmek. Mr. Sigurdsson, for the record, state your name and then proceed.
Good evening, Chair Kiffmeyer. My name is Jeff Sigurdsson. I'm Executive Director of the Campaign Finance and Public Disclosure Board. To the question, correct, there are two sources of funding for public subsidy. The first is the checkoff amount for the political party portion of the payment. And that's reported to us by the Department of Revenue, who tracks the funding from the tax forms. The second part is a $1,020,000 appropriation, which is divided up by office, and it's regardless of which party you're running for. And so the number of candidates, for example, for House, get a portion of the $1,020,000. A portion is given to all Senate candidates, and then that's divided up by the number of candidates who qualifies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sigurdson. Senator Clausen, do you have another question?
Just a comment. I knew the answer, Madam Chair, and I would just like to point out that that's the will of the people. That's where the money goes. That's where it should be going. I think that if we change the process, that we are going to be going against the will of the people who live in that particular Senate district. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Clausen. All right, members, I don't see any other hands. Senator Osmek, you can make closing comments if you wish, or renew your motion for the bill.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just briefly respond to Senator Clausen. I don't necessarily think that this is subverting the will of the people whatsoever. What this is basically saying is it's incentivizing, putting another incentive into play for people to honor, which incidentally, I think everybody in the room with the success, I don't see Senator Fateh in the room. He actually was on the list. I didn't notice that. When he ran for State House, I think in 2018, he exceeded the limits. What this simply does is create an additional incentive. If you sign the public subsidy agreement, you get the money as long as you make you have to get those $50 increments in order to qualify for the public subsidy. But what this does is, again, put incentives in place for candidates to turn this into how many rich friends you have and how big of a Rolodex you have to run a campaign. This should be based on issues. This should be based on what you believe in as a candidate, not based upon how many people from California or Florida you might have to know. So it's an incentive, it's an additional incentive. So with that, Madam Chair, I would move Senate File 1907 be recommended to approve by this body and sent to general orders.
On that motion, members, please unmute and also put your camera on. And on that motion, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
No.
Nay.
All right. Motion does prevail. Senator Osmek, you're on your way to general orders. Thank you, members. We also have next, welcome Senator Housley to the State Government Committee. Glad to have you with us today. Senate File 1566, I will move that bill to put it in front of this committee. And Senator Pratt, when the time comes, I'll call on you to make the motion. This will be going to the Energy Committee. After that, then Senator Housley, again, your name for the audio record, and proceed to present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Koran Housley. I have an A1 amendment.
Okay, Senator Pratt. I will move.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I had a hard time getting off of mute. Madam Chair, I move the A1 amendment.
The A1 amendment has been. We do not have the A1 amendment, Senator Housley.
Oh, Madam Chair, I'm so sorry. I will just leave it till tomorrow. I got a new CA, a new LA, and I think they've missed this part of the process. So I'm sorry. I can do it tomorrow on energy. It's fine.
Okay, all right. If that's your wish, Senator Housley, that is the case then. Then with that, you can just go ahead and present your bill.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and members. Senate File 1566 aims to enhance Minnesota's ability to support communities and workers that will be negatively impacted by the retirement of large investor-owned power plants. I have in my district in Oak Park Heights, the King Power Plant with Excel. So that's how this bill came to me. This bill has two major components. First, the creation of an energy transition legacy plan, which would incorporate the feedback of local governments, state agencies. And then secondly, the bill creates and funds an energy transition legacy office housed within DEED to provide ongoing support to transitioning communities and workers. The energy landscape is rapidly changing as our state and energy providers move towards carbon-free and renewable resources. All of the state's largest baseload power plants are being considered for retirement in the near future. For the communities that host them, like Oak Park Heights or Becker and Senator Matthews District, the plants are economic engines that provide significant tax base and high-quality jobs. Cities and counties are working hard as we speak to prepare for and mitigate the impacts of these retirements, but they can't do it alone. Likewise, the workers employed at these plants, including the many contractors whose livelihoods are tied to the plants, also face difficult crossroads. The high-quality, well-paying jobs available at these facilities aren't the kind that are easily replaced. Senate File 1566 is based on a similar concept that is currently operating in the state of Colorado. It draws upon the experience of local and state officials who are already working hard on this transition. It would help them to take the next steps in the transition process by providing a roadmap and additional tools for the state and local governments and workers to work collaboratively. I do have a testifier here, Shane Zart from the Coalition of Utility Cities, that can speak to the bill also, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you very much, Senator Housley. Yes, we'll proceed to your testifier. And if you would just speak up there you are, Mr. Zart. So sorry on these Zoom dials. Welcome to the committee. Glad to have you here today. Please state your name for the audio record, then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Kiffmeyer and members. My name is Shane Zart. I'm with the firm Flaherty & Hood and represent the Coalition of Utility Cities. The Coalition of Utility Cities is a group of 8 cities that host Minnesota's largest investor-owned power plants. And that coalition has existed for more than 20 years to represent those local governments in the unique tax, land use, and development challenges that they face as a result of hosting large electric generating facilities. So I'm here in support of this bill because those communities are staring at their largest challenge yet, which is the final retirement of those facilities over the course of the next couple decades as the utilities in our state replace those plants with additional carbon-free and renewable resources. So for many of those communities, the property taxes attributable to just the plant alone make up 40 to 75% of their city's annual budget. And they're working actively locally to prepare for the transition by diversifying their tax base and partnering with a range of stakeholders. But the scale and complexity of the transition is such that they just can't do it alone. So for the sake of time tonight, I'm going to keep it very brief, and I'll stay on the line for to assist Senator Housley, and in the event I can be helpful to members in answering questions, because the coalition was involved and provided input on key elements of this proposal. But I will note that this bill, by bringing together a broad range of expertise across state agencies, across a group of stakeholders, establishing a forward-looking statewide transition plan for both communities and workers, and creating an infrastructure at deed to help carry out the work of the transition and plug some of the gaps in our state's infrastructure to help respond to this transition that might currently exist. This is a responsible and proactive way to address these issues that we already know that will have deep impacts on many communities around the state and hundreds, if not thousands, of workers. So with that, thank you to the committee for hearing this bill tonight, and thank you to Senator Housley, and thank you to the others on this committee that have heard bills to support these communities, workers, and other committees in the past as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zart. Appreciate your testimony. Senator Housley, I'm just going to make one comment here about your bill. On page 4, line 12, it says one member of the Senate appointed by the President of the Senate. It is usually the majority leader. Is that what you actually intended?
Madam Chair and members, that is the amendment.
Oh,
yeah. So the amendment, and I'll just do it in the next committee, but it's actually 2 members of the Senate, one appointed by the majority leader and one appointed by the minority leader, and then same for the House. So that was the amendment.
Okay, I will see. It's always nice. This committee in particular deals with the structure. And so I would prefer to have this, and Ms. James can help with that. So Ms. James, if you want to can you clarify for us, and maybe we could move this evening?
Madam Chair, sure. I will email it to Alec, who can forward it to the committee.
Okay, Senator Housley, let's get that done, and then we'll come back to that.
Right.
those listening and the members of the committee are now aware of what it would be, but we'll get the actual language. It makes it easier. And that is coming out to you members and being posted as well. Meantime, we have 3 hands raised. So I'm going to go ahead and call on Senator Carlson. I'm assuming your hand up this time, Senator Carlson, as you do want to.
Sorry, Madam Chair, yes.
You're on.
I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Housley, I want to thank you for bringing this up. This is a serious situation when we do have transitions, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, certainly it matters in this case because we have a rather large facility and employees, and actually it's a big employer of let's say highly paid people as well. And so that's a very important issue. And I want to thank you for doing that. I don't think this is the last time we're going to be shutting down major employers like this, and power plants as well. And now what I do have to, I can't really avoid saying though, that what we are doing is we are increasing we're establishing a new agency, and we're increasing the size of the government and also appropriating general fund money. So I think, I do support this, but I do have a little bit of a shudder when I think about some of the things that we're trying to do here in reducing spending. So I'm glad you're bringing it, and I support it, and we'll figure out a way to do it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, members, to let you know, the amendment, Senator Housley's amendment to our bill has been emailed to you and also properly dealt with by staff. Thank you very much. Senator Clausen, then I'll call on Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for Senator Housley. In most grants that DEED is responsible for, there's usually some type of metric that companies, or how the money's going to be spent. For instance, you might have to ensure that there's going to be 100 new employees at a facility that DEED puts money toward. This ensures that the state funds are being spent as intended. I'm just wondering, as you look at the advisory committee and the transition legacy office, are there going to be such protections that'll be outlined? Are we going to be following a lot of the DEED procedures that are in place when grants are administered, as far as setting metrics so that the funds are being spent appropriately?
Senator Housley.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Clausen. I am going to defer to Mr. Zart.
Mr. Zart.
Sure. Well, thank you, Chair Kiffmeyer and Senator Clausen. But that's, I think, a great question, because it gets to a lot of the work that's happened over the past couple of years on this particular issue. Is that one program that has been created and is already operating in kind of its first round of grants right now, in fact, is something called the Community Energy Transition Grant Program, which was a program, gave a small amount of money to DEED to issue some grants to help with planning and some of the work that the communities are doing on the ground to help face this tradition and transition and prepare locally for it. That program is kind of out there running. That has some reporting and accountability requirements built into that statute. This office would be a more kind of holistic look at, we've got that one program out there and operating, but we know that there's issues much broader than this, and every time we turn over a rock, we find more complexity. So let's create a mechanism to get more cross-agency collaboration going, get some more specific expertise in the same room. And as part of that, I think one of the things that's envisioned in the bill is that this entity, this body, would help administer programs like that Community Energy Transition Grant Program that was already created, and any others like it in the near future. So there's that program already exists, has some reporting accountability requirements built into it. I think this would layer on top of that and help provide direction for it, so even better, make better use of those dollars. So I hope that ties together a couple things and responds to your question.
Thank you, Mr. Zart. All right, Senator Osmek.
Yep, I do have some questions, but I do see the amendment is on the screen. I don't believe we've moved that amendment. Would the chair like to get that amendment moved and put onto the bill at this time?
Yes, you can, Senator Osmek.
Madam Chair, I would move the A1 amendment.
A1 amendment moved to Senate File 1566. Senator Housley, by the way, is this a first stop for your bill?
No.
All right. This has been explained by Senator Housley members. It's very clear, just deleting certain lines, increasing the overall membership. 2 members of the Senate, one appointed by the majority leader, one appointed by the minority leader of the Senate. 2 members of the House of Representatives, one appointed by the Speaker and one appointed by the minority leader. This is common and customary language, and I read it more so for the benefit of those who may be on viewing this, but not able to have access at the same time to the language. So with that, I'll renew Senator Osmek's motion for the A1 amendment to Senate File 1566. Please unmute and be on camera. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. We are back to the debate of the bill, and Senator Osmek, have you finished your points?
Nope. I do have a couple of questions to Senator Housley. This has a familiar ring to it from last year. I think we touched maybe slightly on this. And by the way, I think it's the newfound concern about expanding government is very, very refreshing. And I'm looking forward to using that in future debates. Senator Housley, question regarding regarding this. I guess I'll ask the question: how many FTEs are we talking about here? And question 2 would be: is this board or is this panel going to have the administrative control over the $2 million that the Renewable Development Account provided to you last year?
Senator Housley.
Mr. Chair and Madam Chair and Senator Osmek, I am not sure if they're going to have oversight over that $2 million. I would assume that they would. And as for how many FTEs, I don't think that has been decided. Maybe
Thank
it's
you,
Mr.
Senator
Stark.
Housley. Senator Osmek.
I think that's it. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I think it actually is good to have more of a panel involved in the administration of that renewable development account money. I would suggest, when you're going to take another stop at this and it's going to go to the floor, I would make one suggestion. I didn't see it in the bill. I could be wrong. I would make a suggestion that anything to reemphasize in the bill and the creation of this panel, that money that has been appropriated via the renewable development account does have to stay within the Excel service area. That's pretty important and I think we included that in the language of the bill where we appropriated your money back in June. It's such a long time ago, I'm starting to lose track. I would suggest comfort language to put that in there, if anything, to make sure that we reemphasize to this board that they just can't take that $2 million and send it out to Senator Ingebrigtsen's district, which is what he wants. That it needs to be a general appropriation to go outside the service area. Just a suggestion. It wouldn't change that wouldn't change my position on the bill, but comfort language is always comforting.
Thank you, Senator Osmek. Senator Housley, did you want to address that?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Osmek. I think that is a good idea, just to make sure that there is some oversight and to make sure that the money goes where it was intended. And I want to thank you too for helping us get that funding in June or whenever it was. Seems like a long time ago. So thank you. I will take that into consideration and work with the stakeholders and try and get some comfort language. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Housley. I think my biggest concern is where are you going to get the energy when you close these plants? All right. I mean, it's just a real practical thing. Where's the energy going to come from? And the people of your district still need energy. And it is a concern that I have here when I hear these kinds of discussions, but certainly living next door to Becker and Representative Newberger worked very hard with Senator Matthews in regards to their individual transition and replacing that particular coal plant. So it was a very effective effort that they made together, though still leaving a hole in their community. Nonetheless, I see no other hands at this time. We've applied the amendment. Senator Pratt, you could make the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that Senate file, I lost 1566. Thank you. Do pass and be referred to the Committee on Energy.
Senator Pratt moves that Senate File 1566 as amended be recommended to pass and be referred to the Energy Committee. On that motion, unmute please and be on your camera. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion prevails and is adopted. Thank you, Senator Housley.
Thank you.
All right, members, we will next go to Senator Chamberlain's bill. As I have previously announced that we would be inserting Senate File 1525 after Senator Housley. Senator Chamberlain, welcome to the committee and glad to have you with us this evening. And I will move Senate File 1525. The bill is before us. Senator Chamberlain, state your name for the audio record and proceed to present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Chamberlain, I'm here with Senate File 1525. So happy to be in front of the State Gov Committee. Senate File 1525 is about school choice. It establishes a education savings accounts, excuse me, and a process for the Department of Education to set that up and administer it. Pardon me.
Senator Chambers, if you'd like to get a drink of water, why don't we just go to Ms. James to give you a few moments and she can just tell us about the purpose this bill is for the committee, the particular section that might help.
I'm all right, but I'm happy to Ms. James. There's 3 areas in there that.
All right, okay, then go ahead.
Madam Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. James. Go ahead, Ms. James. We just got
Madam Chair and members, in subdivision 6, this paragraph D, the commissioner is authorized to adopt in paragraph D a process, in paragraph E authorization to contract, and then paragraph F an authorization to adopt rules. So those would be of interest to this committee.
Ms. James, when we've had rulemaking to this committee before, has this, I'm just going to get a hold of this language. I read a summary, the research summary. I just wanted to get to the particular subdivision that you are referencing, I believe here.
Madam Chair and members, it's on page 5. The rules authorization is on page 5, lines 22 and 23.
Okay, Senator Chamberlain, this is a very broad rulemaking grant here. And I would suggest that in your next stop or somewhere along the way that you and I have a conversation about this and maybe do a little additional language here.
What if I say I don't want a conversation?
Well, I think you will, Senator Chamberlain.
That's fine, Senator Kiffmeyer, Madam Chair.
So Senator Chamberlain, if you want to go ahead and present your bill though.
So again, it establishes school education savings accounts and for the Department of Education to set up a process to administer those accounts for parents. It is simply a school choice bill empowering parents. The money follows the parents and they get to choose the school of their choice. It's estimated that the general ed revenue is about $10,000. So there's no additional cost to the state in that sense because the money that's attached to that student be about $10K. And then if the student has special needs, any special needs money also goes with that student. So they have a choice of going to the school that best fits the needs of their child, anywhere that might be. It can pay for a variety of school-related, education-related items, including transportation, and of course, tuition and books, online support, et cetera, et cetera. Anything they might need to do that. Now, to prevent double dipping and some other issues, the kids would have to, to take part, the kids would have to be in a public school already. And then the parents, if they choose to pull their child out, then they'd have to sign an agreement. It kind of prevents that they're going to take the child to a school that's accredited. They will take, and then they will be prevented from going back to another school and getting a public education while taking the $10,000 and doing something else with it. So to that point, there's a lot of enforcement issues in here, and that's referred to on page 6 as well, part of rulemaking. So that's, I mean, it's school choice. The money will follow the child, and the parents know what's best for the kid. So they're going to do what they can to get that kid the education they deserve and need. It's an equalizer of sorts. And if they choose that the public school is best, they'll stay there. If not, they might go somewhere else. So there's a lot of little pieces to it, but that's it. It's only 7 pages long. And the biggest piece is just setting up the process and administration of that account. I will say that part of the ongoing payment cost of administering the account would be paid for by withholding 6% of those funds. So on $10,000, they withhold about $600 to administer the account. And then there'd be an upfront cost to set everything up. We have not yet requested a fiscal note.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. I appreciate this bill very much. My heart goes out to those who are not well to do enough to be able to have some of these choices. And your bill gives an opportunity for every single parent to be able to make this choice using the Education Savings Accounts for Students Act. And I really appreciate that. I know Minnesota is one of the lowest education gaps in the country. And we need to think more creatively how we are able to meet the needs of all the students in the situation. I know that's your heart as well. So I appreciate that. Members, any other discussion? I see no hands at this time. With that, I will move Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there no testifiers that are identified for the bill?
There are no testifiers on this list, Senator, on the agenda, or even after Member Senator Clausen. The bill before us today is largely because of the rulemaking, not always. So testifiers have other opportunities to speak to the policy, Senator Clausen. Do you wish to comment, though? Please go ahead.
I do have a couple questions. You know, the state constitution in Article 13 is pretty clear that it's the duty of the legislature to establish a general and uniform system of public schools. It goes on to say a thorough and efficient system of public schools throughout the state. And then it also talks about no public money should be sent to schools that hold any type of religious doctrine. So I'm concerned from that standpoint, but I do have a specific question for Senator Chamberlain. Does the ESA dollar amount per pupil include an average of the local referendum dollars, or is it just the per pupil allocation that comes from the state?
Senator Chamberlain.
Madam Chair, Senator Clausen, it will not include the local referendum dollars, just the state money.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to
Senator
clarify.
Clausen, could I just interrupt? Ms. James, you have your hand up. Usually that means something important right now.
Madam Chair and members, I just wanted to note that I left out one of the sites to a rulemaking grant. So I wanted you to be aware of that. That's on lines 5.1 through 5.4.
Okay, thank you, Ms. James. Sorry, Senator Clausen, but Ms. James. All right.
Thank you.
You can go ahead.
I want to reference line 4.10. It says the statewide average general education revenue per adjusted pupil unit. In education jargon, generally when you say revenue, it's typically is used to mean aid plus levy. So the question is, would the district transfer levy dollars to Minnesota Department of Education? how would local citizens feel about that? Their levy dollars being transferred into an ESA account? Maybe that it need a little bit more clarification in that area. This is the second time I've helped you now, Senator Chamberlain. 2 years ago, I helped you by pointing out something.
Senator Chamberlain.
Madam Chair and Senator Clausen, I don't know what I do with what I've been doing without you, Senator Clausen. No, this bill is going to go back to K-12. We had a 2-hour hearing in K-12. It's got to go back to K-12, and I anticipate a fix or two in there, but there's no intention of taking local levy dollars to follow the kids. That's not the intent at all. It'll be straight the general ed revenue, but no levy dollars. So we estimate the general ed revenue is around 10K, but it'll be somewhat less, whatever the local levy amount is for that child.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a lot of concerns about this bill. This perhaps is not the committee to raise those. There'll be other opportunities, but again, thanks for the time for me to voice my opinion on a couple things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Clausen. Appreciate everybody's comments. And Senator Chamberlain, there's no further hands. So if you'd like to make a closing comment here.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you for the discussion and the time.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. We hope we were able to get you out of the committee a little bit earlier tonight instead of having to wait through to the end.
You're very kind. I would.
we try.
I was greatly relieved, Senator Kiffmeyer. Thank you.
I know. With that, members, I will make the motion Senate File 1525 be recommended to pass and to be referred to the Education Committee. On that motion, everybody unmute on camera. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, raise your hand and say no.
Oh.
All right. Those 2 noes being recognized. With that, the motion does pass. Senator Chamberlain, you have escaped out of the State Government Committee. We're delighted to have you. We'd love to keep you longer, but with that, you're on your way back to your Education Committee.
I love you all, but thanks.
All right. Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. All right, members, now we just have some bills left on our agenda, and I'm going to hand the gavel over to Senator Howe. And Senator Howe, just give me one moment to get my paperwork set up here so I am ready.
All right.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, members, I believe the next on the list is Senator Kiffmeyer's Senate File 1834. 2-year bill, Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, Senate File 1834 is a vehicle bill. You're all familiar with this time of the year when we need to work together. The chair of the House Committee is carrying this bill in the House, and I'm carrying it in the Senate. But this is a good piece of language by being more specific about the November forecast, be delivered instead of no later than the end of the first week of December. It specifies a date by December 6th. And I think that'll add some clarity and specificity. And so with that, members, I ask for your vote of support.
It looks, Madam Chair, or Senator Kiffmeyer, it looks like this is going to be informational.
On this particular bill, that is correct.
All right, so.
And the reason why, if I can explain that, Mr. Chair, so the actual bill is in the possession of the Finance Committee. That is where this bill went, is and assigned to the Finance Committee. But we wanted to be sure that we gave the State Government Committee an opportunity to hear this bill, because most often this is something that we would hear. It affects our committee. But it's gone to the Finance Committee, so we gave an informational hearing, which we would then have moved it on to the Finance Committee anyway. So yes, it is informational and we don't need to take any action at this time.
Well, thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Are there any questions about Senate File 1834 from members? If not, we'll move on to Senate File 1835, Senator Kiffmeyer.
And members,
Another informational bill.
that's right, there's an informational bill. And again, this is a bill that is in the Finance Committee, but I wanted to be sure that the opportunity for this committee, state government, would be able to see what is in this bill. And in particular, in this one, if you will see that on the bottom of page 1, there's an additional and then we strike the Clean Water Fund established in 114D50 until 22 million has been transferred into the fund, and I believe that has been accomplished, and so it is being stricken from the statute. And Ms. James, can you clarify that what I've said is accurate?
Ms. James.
Madam Chair and members, yes, that's accurate.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. James. Senator Kiffmeyer.
And so this bill is already in the Finance Committee. If we've taken an action tonight, that's what we would have done, is sent it to the Finance Committee. Informational only, no need to take action. Thank you, members, for your time.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. So then we'll move to Senate File 1879. Senator Kiffmeyer, a bill relating to certain provisions of the Department of Administration.
This is a Department of Administration agency bill, and we do have Ms. Byrle from the Department of Administration, and I do have an amendment that's been requested, and so I would offer the A1 amendment to Senate File 1879.
Well, thank you, Madam Senator Kiffmeyer. She moves the A1 amendment to Senate File 1879. All those, this is an author's amendment.
It is an author's amendment, but Mr. Chair, since Ms. Byrle is here, could she just explain the A1 amendment briefly for us?
Absolutely. Ms. Byrle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Julie Byrle from the Department of Administration. So this amendment was something that we realized a little bit late. And so I know that you probably have also experienced difficulty with the the revisor's office. So instead of introducing a bill, we thought we would amend this bill, and it would address the deadline for the state demographer to disseminate census data to local governments. Currently, the data is due to local governments by June 1st of each year, but this year we will not get the US Census information until at least September 30th, so we would miss that deadline. So this amendment would change for years when we have a census, that the state demographer's deadline would be 6 weeks after we receive that from the US Census Bureau, which is similar to what we would normally receive. So usually we would get that information in April and then be able to get that to local governments by June 1st. So it's similar to the time that we would be given normally. And then it gives us a little more flexibility when we have those census years. Is there anything else I want to tell you about this?
That's okay, Ms. Byerly. We get the idea. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Oops.
Well, Senator Kiffmeyer, I was thinking that maybe we could actually offer members to ask questions about the amendment if they care to now before voting on it.
Sure, that would be fine.
Members, any questions about moving that date, what the amendment does? Seeing none, Madam Chair, Senator Kiffmeyer, if you'd like to, we could just take a vote.
My motion
any
for the
last
A1 amendment. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. All those members in favor of the A1 amendment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay, and give me a thumbs down. The A1 amendment is on the Senate File 1879. Senator Kiffmeyer, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. Members, in regards, since that topic of the census came up, just to let you know, the state of Ohio, which has an earlier date than we do for redistricting, is actually suing the U.S. Department, the United States Census Bureau, because of what it is doing to their redistricting process. So it affects us here in Minnesota, and it affects everybody statewide. And even though this particular amendment is put on, we are still at great risk of not being able to meet our February 15th deadline for next year. So this will be an ongoing issue, and it's really too bad that the Census Bureau made the decision to delay this data because it really affects everybody and is very, very difficult. Mr. Chair, Ms. Barrell here is able to do an explanation of this agency bill. I would defer to her.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Ms. Barley, can you just walk us through the bill, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my name is Julie Byrell from the Department of Administration. I want to thank Senator Kiffmeyer for authoring and hearing Senate File 1879, which is Admin's General Statute Cleanup Bill. You'll see from the various provisions in the bill the breadth of services that admin provides to state agencies and Minnesotans. So first, some changes for our Fleet and Surplus Services Division. The bill updates central motor pool references to be enterprise fleet. This name is what admin currently uses and better reflects the work of the division. We also want to clarify the definition of a passenger motor vehicle for the purposes of the state fleet. And we are also adding the Department of Corrections Inmate Community Work Crew Program to the list of entities that can be exempt from state markings on their vehicles. So this group has requested the ability to operate without the state of Minnesota identifier on their vehicles. And we want to allow a retired state canine to be turned over to their handler. So currently, when a state canine retires, admin does not have the authority to turn the canine over to their handlers. And this puts us in a difficult position as trained canines typically require special handling and would not generally be released to the public. So, and the handlers and their canines also share a special bond as partners focused on a common goal. And admin is requesting the authority to give retired state canines a good life after their state service. And I think everyone can agree that this is the most important provision in our bill. Next are some changes for the State Historic Preservation Office. We need to do some statutory cleanup from the 2017 legislatively mandated transfer of SHPO to admin from the Minnesota Historical Society. So this is making those minor changes, and the Historical Society supports these changes. Also, we'd like to codify the Office of Enterprise Sustainability, which was created by executive order in 2017, and they assist agencies in meeting their sustainability goals and avoiding energy costs. And I wanted to note that OES has tracked over 45 million in avoided costs since 2005. Also, the bill updates statutes related to the move of the Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution from the Bureau of Mediation Services to admin in 2019. Many of the committee members may be familiar with the good work that OCDR does through the Civility Caucus. Next, we'd like some changes for the State Demographic Center. So we'd like to repeal the obsolete Minnesota Milestones Report. Minnesota milestones are no longer listed in statute, so there's no criteria for this report. MMB now has a results first division that does similar work, and the results first includes an inventory of indicators to guide the budgeting process. The State Demographic Center publishes an annual report in another statute that is more flexible and can be in response to current trends or interest areas or legislative direction. Also, we'd like to guarantee access to apartment buildings for census workers to be the same as candidate access. Apartment access turned out to be a problem during the census count last year, and we heard from cities that they wanted something they could point to in statute. Thank you for adding the amendment for changing the date for the state demographer to report population counts to local governments. And then finally, some changes for our facility management division. We want to update the list of buildings controlled by admin and to remove an obsolete reference to the recycling center and materials handling services. The state's recycling center was closed in 2010, and we now contract for that work through a competitive bidding process. That concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Thank you, Ms. Byrell. Questions, members? You answered my biggest question, and that was what it was in the repealers. So that was my biggest question. So any other questions? Well, Seeing none, Senator Kiffmeyer renews her motion that Senate File 8.
Senator Howe, this is
Yeah.
Chair Howe, this is going to be laid over for possible inclusion.
That's exactly what I was going to get to. So
Okay.
I was going to say Senate File 1879 be laid over for possible inclusion.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Then you've got Senator Kiffmeyer, Senate File 1762.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. Is this the last one? This is the last bill on our agenda. And I do have a amendment, Mr. Chair, and this is not the first stop for this bill. So it would not be an author's amendment. And I'd like to move the Senate File 1762, and then I'd like to move the A4 amendment. I'll be glad to explain it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kiffmeyer moves the A4 amendment. Senator Kiffmeyer, to your amendment.
Ms. James picked up some technical things, which I appreciate very much. And that is that we didn't have a way to convene the first meeting of the advisory committee. So the language on line 1.3 accomplishes that. And then also on line 1.5, after committee inserting, including any draft legislation necessary to implement the recommendations. Both of these are common language that goes with this kind of a implementation, and that is the A4 amendment.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Questions, members, on the A4 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A4 amendment, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay give me a thumbs down. Seeing none, Senator Kiffmeyer, the A4 is amended on to 1764. To your bill as amended.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to ask Ms. James if she would outline the sections. This is a very large bill, members. It is the Family Child Care Task Force, which I co-chaired, met for 2 years. This is the result of their recommendations on the 8 duties that were included in legislation, and the articles in the bill correspond to each one of those duties, and having those recommendations in this particular language. But it's a large bill, it's a variety of things, but it's before this committee for a purpose. So Ms. James, if you could inform us of that.
Ms. James.
Mr. Chair and members, on page 14, section 3 there establishes a family child care training advisory committee. So that is of interest to this committee. Also, I'll note on page 16, the bill establishes an ombudsperson for child care providers, so essentially a new state office, and that is also of interest to the committee.
Thank you, Ms. James. And the favorite part of my bill is the ombudsperson, of course. I'm glad to see it's in there. So, Senator Kiffmeyer, to your bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Matter of fact, the Family Child Care Task Force liked it so much that it was one of the provisions that had, I think, pretty much no objection. So it was well received, and so your preliminary work was just brought into the task force and into its recommendations. And thank you for all the efforts that you put forward on it. You deserve a lot of credit for it, and thank you. So, Mr. Chair and members, one of the things was that in this particular advisory committee was to be sure that in the future, when the Department of Human Services does training requirements, that they have an advisory committee made up of child care providers to help them in regards to making some of these updates to rules and statutes. And there are also several portions of this bill, such as the modernization of the family child care training requirements and so on. This would be able to have an advisory committee that could continue the work of the task force and make it part of that process. So members, that is purpose before the committee, and I would ask for your support, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Members, questions regarding the amended Senate File 1762? Seeing none, Senator Kiffmeyer, you can move your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that Senate File 1762 as amended be recommended to pass and to be referred to the
Civil law.
Civil law. That's my motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kiffmeyer moves that Senate File 1762 as amended be passed and be referred to the Civil Law and Data Practices Committee. All those in favor, members, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay, and same sign. Senator Kiffmeyer, your bill is on its way to civil law. With
Thank you
that,
very
members, with that, members, if unless the chair Kiffmeyer's got any further questions, there's no other business in front of the committee.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I just want to say thank you to all the members of the committee, especially for going all day and into the evening. It's deadline week, the first deadline. So appreciate the extra time you've put in here on this committee, and I very much appreciate it. With that, Mr. Chair, you can adjourn.
We are adjourned. See you tomorrow, folks.